Okay, so we are live now, so we should be getting on the way very, very soon. All right, folks, I guess we are live now, so let me say a special good afternoon to all of you already in the listening and viewing audience. It's a pleasure to have you guys on board. This afternoon, we sort of making a sort of late start, a little late, but that is no fault of ours here. It's some technical issues that we're having, but nonetheless, we are getting on the way with our program in like about now. So again, a special good afternoon, special greetings and welcome to all of you here on the Civic Vibes platform. We always appreciate your listening and your viewing. We always appreciate your engagement with us each and every Sunday from the 4 o'clock hour. Today is being celebrated as Father's Day. So those of you who are fathers among us here this afternoon, we want to say a special good afternoon to you, a special Father's Day to you. We have one man already in the midst. And so in just a while, that is Mr. Dwight Astafan. We'll say a special happy Father's Day to him when his mic is open as well. And we'll get the conversation going on in just a bit. For those of you who saw the promotional flyer that we did this afternoon, it is the 19th of June, 2022. And we expect to have a very interesting conversation here. Two segments, one is from 4 to 5 and the other being from 5 to 6 o'clock. The first segment, we will be getting an update, as it were, with some of our folks in the region. That is, we'll be touching base with Miss Beverly St. Clair. Beverly St. Clair is no stranger to Civic Vibes. She's basically part and parcel of the team now of Civic Vibes as well. We'll be having Mr. Dwight Astafan from St. Kitts and Nevis. We well know these two countries, they are now in full campaign swing, full campaign mode, as it were. So we'll be getting an update from these two esteemed people in just a while, just to bring us up to date in terms of what is happening in their neck of the wood, rather, as it pertains to the election and how everything is unfolding from their end. The second segment, we are coming back home, as it were. We are coming back to Dominica, where we'll be talking to a sitting magistrate that is none other than Miss Gloria Septra Augustus. She will be discussing with us all the important topic that is of child or children justice. And so from 5 to 6, we'll be trying our very best to engage Miss Augustus in that all important discussion. So folks, you are in tune to Civic Vibes. You are in tune for a treat as well. So all I ask is that you keep it locked and share the live as we speak. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor that Civic Vibes is on and we're about to take flight pretty soon. But without further ado, let me move across to the co-host of the program, that is Miss Paula Celestine, so that she can give her opening remarks to our guests and as well our viewers and listeners. Paula, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Lofty, and how are you doing?
Very well, Paula.
Okay, I too want to wish you happy Father's Day, Lofty, and also to Mr. Dwyer. I want to say wishing you gentlemen all the best, and there are those who are just that, and there are those who are real fathers. So happy Father's Day to the both of you and to all the other dads who are listening and viewing us. I want to say happy Father's Day to them as well. And to our other guests here this afternoon, welcome. And also welcome to all our viewers as usual. It's going to be a very interesting afternoon. And we hope that you all stick around with us. Thank you, Lofty.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Paula, for your opening salvo, as it were. Let me move across, because we are into the 4 o'clock hour already. Let me move across now, as they say, ladies first. Miss St. Clair, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Lofty. Happy Father's Day to you. and happy Father's Day to my colleague Dwyer as well. Hope you guys have been enjoying your day so far.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bev. Thank you indeed. It's always a pleasure having you in our company, and we appreciate that very much. None but not least for sure, the man himself, Mr. Dwyer, no stranger to Civic Vibes. Dwyer, good afternoon, brother.
Good afternoon, Lofty. Good afternoon, Beverly. Good afternoon, Paula, and our viewers and listeners. Thanks for having me.
All right, indeed. Gentle people, let us, before we get the conversation going on the way in terms of giving us an update, let me give you guys an update as to the recent developments in Dominica, because that program is all about sharing information as it pertains to what is happening in our region. I don't know, Dwyer, I don't know, Bev, if you have been following a case in Dominica of kidnapping, whereby a young child, 12 years old, in the name of Kanisha Etienne, was abducted by her home, at her home, on about the 7th of this month, the 7th of June, at about 10:30 in the night. A lot of search has been on, a national search has been on for young Kanisha and her abductor since. This came to a head last night, or yesterday afternoon rather, in that the abductor was shot and killed by the police down somewhere on the west coast of Dominica, Dwyer, if you know they're well in the area of Layu. He was shot and killed yesterday. The very sad, unfortunate thing still out that is still hanging out there is that there's still no sign of that 12-year-old child. So the search continues for that 12-year-old child, Kanisha Etienne, but for sure, hopes and luck, I must say, is running out at this time. With every passing hour, she is not found. So I just say I'll bring you guys up to speed with, what we have been going through in Dominica, so that just to get you guys abreast as to what is happening in Dominica.
Yeah, that is a very sad story indeed. So, is there a backstory to this kidnapping? Why was she taken?
Well, it's a sort of long and windy story. That is why I chose just to give you guys a synopsis. But in essence, the guy, we are told he's a mental patient, meaning he's suffering from mental disorders. And a lot of persons keep saying and have said that he's a menace to society. A lot of time police were called in to basically apprehend him or try to get him in terms of his mental situation under order, but the police did not respond in time, or they did not respond adequately. And so for some strange reason, this guy on the 7th, as I said, went into Warner at his uncle's home, where that child was being adopted by some adopted parents. It is worth noting as well, her mother, that is the child's mother, vanished without a trace about 8 to 10 years ago as well. So it's a case of maybe history repeating itself if young Kanisha is not found.
Yeah. Well, they say truth is stranger than fiction. So I certainly empathize with that family, and against all the odds, Lofty, I hope that she will be found safe and sound and can be returned to her family.
Yes, indeed. That is the wish of, the majority of all persons on the ground in Dominica. Matter of fact, the search continues. Lots of persons are out there trying their very best, at least to bring her back home alive. If not alive, but at least her remains in the worst case scenario. All right, let's get into it, guys. We know time flies. Let me start with Dwyer. Dwyer, well, we know that you guys are in full campaign mode. I'm being told that there is still not a date as yet as to when you guys will be going to the polls. Am I correct, Dwyer?
You are correct. Yes,
So
you are correct.
So why is that? Why that situation still?
You see, because we have people ruling, I want to say is the word, ruling these countries who have no respect for convention, for the sensitivities and sensibilities of the electoral process, for the sanctity of the vote, and all of these other things, and for governance conventions, so that he has 90 days in which to call and elect, to hold the election after the dissolution of parliament. And he's milking it for all that he can. Doing a lot of things that he shouldn't be doing, starting projects, announcing this and announcing that, bearing in mind, he had a 9-person cabinet. And you said 9. He had 9 elected members in his cabinet. And he's down to 3. And he's still doing all of these things. It's a sign of not just desperation, but a sign of a despot who perhaps is mortally afraid to lose power. But lose power he will. As we say here in St. Kitts, and I'm sure you say it in the other islands too, God don't like ugly. So he's being despotic. He's being despotic, and I spoke to a young lady a couple of days ago. Her name is on the voters list. Under our rules here, you have to go to the electoral office to register as a voter in person. She doesn't even know where the electoral office is, but she's on the list. There are people coming in from Santo Domingo, it is said, with passports who never set foot on this land before. That is what is being said. Just like in the last election, we are told that people have been getting permission, not just permission to get married, but once you get married, getting citizenships in rapid time, just in time to get registered for the election, and on and on and on and on with the shenanigans. There seems to be no end to this menace, and we have to get him out by the election. And I'm afraid that if he tries to go overboard with these shenanigans, that the wrong election result could have bad consequences for the country.
You say the wrong election results could have bad consequences for the country. You want to break that down a little?
Well, if he's doing all of these things, and the result of the election is not a clear reflection of the will of the people, and people's frustration has been boiling and boiling and boiling, what do you expect to happen, Lofty? When you turn on the kettle, after a while, what happens? It starts to make noise.
Yeah.
And the top opens up and the steam comes out. We are hoping that that doesn't happen.
Let's hope not, for the people's sake. Let's hope not.
Right.
Thank you. Bev, let me move across to you now in terms of, telling us how are things unfolding in Grenada.
Well, Grenada's election was prematurely, more than a year before it was constitutionally due, but called it was, and the opposition went into full campaign mode, as did the incumbent, which currently forms the government. So both parties hit the road. But I can tell you, it's been 2 completely different types of campaigning. And let me speak to the incumbent first, because I am seriously disappointed to see that after forming the government for over 30 years and riding on a mantra of experience, that the campaign is so base. It has no substance. It's just like a saying, vote for me because I've been there 30 years, I have the experience, so vote for me. That's the kind of message you're getting from the government. On the other side, the opposition has been holding town hall meetings and really sticking to the issues, addressing various things like pensions, public sector workers who are on contract. I don't think it's any different in many of your countries. You have a high number of people working in the public sector that are on contract. And the various different reasons that have been given for doing that have spanned more than a decade. There are people on contract for more than 10 years, which in itself is a breach of the public service rules. And that situation is quite thorny right now. The recent court ruling on the pensions issue, which goes back to 1983, 84, 85, from the days when the revolution ended. But when the revolution ended, there was something in the making for pensions for public servants. That, of course, did not come to fruition. There were no laws to support it. So after the revolution ended, the pension law was supposed to be back in force. There has been a lot of legal back and forth with that issue since that time, until just a few weeks ago, the court ruled that the people have to be paid their pension. This administration has really, I would say, stoutly resisted dealing with the pension issue. If you have been there for 30-odd years and haven't dealt with the pension issue, then it has to be that you had no will to deal with the pension issue. And there are other matters between the public service and the current administration that are not settled and have really are playing a part in this campaign, because the public servants have spoken up, have spoken out, and are rightly demanding that their interests be given attention. The incumbent, again, has not given any clear indication of what they intend to do about the pension, despite the court ruling which says pay the people their money. The opposition has taken the time to not to commit to anything or go into detail, but to outline possible ways how that must be dealt with. Because at the top of what they are saying, they say, of course, we have to pay. And then they have said these are some possibilities of how the pensions will be paid. So issues like those, the opposition is dealing with in the town hall meetings that they've been holding across the country. And they have been effective, where people are calling for these town hall meetings to continue. If they should win and form the next administration, people are saying, do continue with the town hall meetings, because people need to have an avenue where they can be in touch with their representatives and they can speak one-on-one about issues and get some answers to questions they may have. So that has added a new dimension to campaigning that I've never seen before, certainly in Grenada, and the people have responded well to it. I can say there is an energy and an excitement to the campaign that I've really never seen before. You know, generally election campaign time, people jump up and they run behind the party colors and expect certain kind of things, but there is an added energy and excitement in the campaign lofty that I've really never seen before. We don't know what it will translate to on voting day, but it is there now, and it is in favor of the opposition party, I must say. So we look to see if they can bring out the vote to match the excitement, or if the incumbents' base will still be large enough and strong enough to continue to give them the mandate that they need to form the government. But I do expect it to be very, very interesting. Security forces vote tomorrow. The police officers will vote tomorrow. Most of them anyway, those who are on the police voters list. And then the rest of the population on Thursday will make it to the polls to select a new administration. So that is my update for now.
All right, Bev, thank you. Thank you very much for, your opening remarks, as it were, kind of painting a true or real picture as to how things are unfolding in Grenada. What I want to ask you, Bev, is that are there any allegations of treating and bribery in Grenada as it pertains to this election?
It's interesting that you raise that issue because one of the newer, smaller parties headed by Andrea Rapier, that party is called Power, fairly new on the scene, and Andrea Rapier wrote to the Commissioner of Police and raised concern about the rallies with the artists, the free concerts.
Yes.
Has raised concern about that issue because it does fall under treaty, which is illegal in Grenada as well. And she has asked the Commissioner of Police to address the matter. We haven't heard any response, of course, as expected, from the Commissioner on the matter, but I am glad that she raised it so that at least you know there are civic-minded people out there and people who are concerned about the rule of law, looking at these concerts with these artists coming in through concerts, you know, to entertain people during an election rally. So the concern is there, Lofty, and at least one political party has addressed it. I think you
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry about that. A matter of fact, Bev, I have in my possession a copy of her letter that she wrote to the Commissioner of Police. And I'm just going to read a paragraph just to kind of echo what you said a while ago. She said that I am Andrea Ripper, a citizen of Grenada, and I'm filing a complaint regarding the election violations to Grenada laws, which has criminal consequences. It continues by saying, Prime Minister Keith Mitchell has on several occasions given voters free performances, free money, free t-shirts, and promised 4 days of partying after the election. These actions are in conflict with the Representation of the People's Act treating law. She says here, treating is defined as, is defined and prohibited by the Representation of People's Act, and I've included the direct excerpt of this correspondence. And she went on and on, but basically, Miss, what's her name, Rapier, is that?
Rapier.
Rapier, yeah, she basically launched a complaint to the police and citing some of these elections violations, she said.
Yeah, because apart from Dominica, I don't know that any other country has taken this treaty issue seriously enough to take the matter to court. And it just continues every election cycle. You know, all manner and all types of treating blatantly goes on, and it's just accepted by the population. So I personally am very happy to see that Ms. Rapier put her foot out and wrote to the police commissioner about it. And I believe it will be an indictment on him if he does not respond to her and address the matter in some way, shape, or form.
Thanks. Paula, any thoughts based on what you heard thus far?
Well, Lofty, it looked like most of the Caribbean countries, our neighboring countries, it look like they are very much busy into elections. So it's the election season all over. And this was a very important question that you asked Beverly, whether anyone has reported on bribery and any of this, because we know what has happened in Dominica here time and time again, and even the most recent election that we had in 2019. And this is one of the great concerns that a lot of persons here in Dominica we've been talking about for a very long time. So these things are very important. And when there is no fairness in elections, time and time again, the right things are not done, because to be paying someone to vote, you know, this should never be allowed to happen. So we'll keep our eyes open and we'll keep our ears, you know, listen to really what's really happening around us. Because Dominica as well, elections seems like they may be somewhere in the air, not very far. So we'll just keep our eyes open and keep listening, you know. So that's it.
Yeah. All right, Paula, thank you very, very much. Dwyer, what are some of the pertinent issues that the electorate is they are clamoring about? What are some of the issues, Dwyer, in St. Kitts and Nevis?
But first of all, the cost of living is, which I don't think is unique to us. That's a major problem, particularly coming on the heels of the COVID lockdown, which we suffered here, during which a lot of people suffered mental and emotional anguish, but a lot of people lost their work. And a number of them have not received any compensation, whether under the law as required in some cases, or compassionately as would be expected from a decent and caring government. So people have been suffering, and on top of that, you get hit with the supply chain, and then you get hit with the oil problems with Ukraine and Russia and so forth. So that is a problem. Jobs are a serious problem. We're having a very, very poor summer season in the cruise industry. We get in 1, maybe 2 ships a month, when other marquee ports like St. Thomas and St. Martin are getting 4 and 5 a week. And this is because of bad leadership by the government. And you know, the cruise lines book 2 years ahead of time. So when 2 years ago, you were projecting this lack of confidence and this gross uncertainty, the cruise lines didn't have time to waste, so they booked their ships elsewhere. Health is a serious issue in the country. Good governance is a serious issue in the country. Corruption is a major, major issue in the country. And you have a couple of projects that the government seems determined to get into. One of them is rebuilding the major high school in the country on what is a protected area under our Environmental Act. It's an aquifer from which we get 60% of our daily water. And I want to build a school there that would house 1,000 students and maybe 150 staff. They seem to be going ahead with that. But the people are going to stop that from happening. Then you have a solar plant that some Swiss people have been given a sweetheart deal on to build and own and sell power to the government, which in turn will sell it to us. The people are up in arms about that because that should be owned by the people of this country. And the third thing is a 300-cell prison. I don't know what St. Kitts is doing with a 300-cell prison, which is in the hands of a Chinese developer that will receive the applications. You have a similar thing in Dominica.
Just on this side, they think that prison it's been catered for persons that are of dissenting voices?
Well, I'll tell you something. It's the very persons who are pushing it who may end up in it. But I'll tell you, if I have my way, that prison won't be built. Certainly not like that. Because the Chinese company stands to benefit maybe $600 million US out of the deal. And if the government is building a government facility and raising the funds through the citizenship program, the money should be paid directly into the government. It must engage architects and contractors and get the job done itself without having to go through those people. And so the $600 million net that is being projected will go into the public coffers to use to build out your health infrastructure, your climate resistance, resilience, your education, your infrastructure, and creating the foundation for the new economy. We're living in a world now where there's more and more artificial intelligence. A lot of jobs are going to become obsolete. A lot of people are become redundant. We're not training our people for the challenges of the new world. And so in addition to this dependency syndrome that has been cultivated by the politicians, they are misusing the resources, empowering foreigners, keeping locals with their caps in their hands, and not preparing the local people in terms of training and education and attitude to meet the challenges of the future. Now, with regard to the Citizenship by Investment program, if we do not, as a region, standardize our programs, we are going to lose the visa-free access to the Schengen countries by 2025. And that will close down the program for all practical purposes. And I don't know about Dominica, but I'm sure I'm right. Well, I think I'm right. The Citizenship by Investment revenue fund, revenue stream, is the biggest single revenue stream for the government.
Yes, you are sure right on that.
So they are playing with fire and don't have water to put it out. It shows their lack of ability and their selfish, narrow-minded approach to leadership. So our country, a number of people may not be aware of it. It's like a bullet coming through your window while you're asleep. This is what our country is facing if we don't make a change immediately and put a halt to some of these foolish things that are happening and get a government which can prepare us for the new economy and the new global order. And all of these islands have the same problem, lack of vision. I was just reading something, a letter that Lee Kuan Yew, the late Prime Minister of Singapore, wrote in anticipation of his death. And you know, they had tried to link up with Malaya, but it didn't work out. So Singapore had to go on its own, the size of St. Lucia. And they didn't have a lot of confidence. But what they did was they had vision and they worked hard and they had good governance protocols in place. Lee Kuan Yew said he went to Ottawa in 1973 to a meeting of Commonwealth heads of government, Ottawa, Canada. He used to fly commercial because he didn't want Singapore Airlines jets to be tied up. He said when he landed at Ottawa Airport, he saw a Boeing 707, government of Bangladesh. The Prime Minister of Bangladesh had flown to Ottawa in a 707 on his own. It landed on the airport and stayed there for 8 days in Ottawa, generating no money. The same Prime Minister of Bangladesh at the meeting was up and down the place begging people for aid. And the people in the Commonwealth who are more resourceful said basically, he is up and down the place looking for aid. And he landed here in a jet, which is sitting on the airport for 8 days. And he says he's a third world country. This is the kind of puppy show that we have run in these countries.
Yeah.
You understand? And I just brought it out to tell you that it's not just in our region, but we seem to be, that is our pandemic, our, well, I don't know what the right word to use for the region. Epidemic for our region. Crappy, puppy show, greedy, criminal in some cases, leadership.
Yeah, thanks, Dwyer, for your input here. Folks, it is already 1:45. Our time flies, huh? Please, you can send in your comments, write in your suggestions, whatever you think of the program if you need to ask a question. But Bev, just before I get back to you, let me read a comment in terms of a question someone is asking you there, and if you can provide some answers for us here as we're moving on. It says here, if Ms. Rapier takes legal action against the government, is there a possibility, that person is asking, that is Christine Nicholas, that is there a possibility that that case will be put off till the end of the election or delay the election until the election is clear? What do you think will happen, Bebe?
Well, definitely it's not going to delay the election. I would like to live long enough to see a court case that stops an election in our region. It hasn't happened, and I would not hold my breath that that could ever happen. And if she does decide to file a case, it wouldn't be against the government. It would be against the candidates and the party that is conducting these activities, which resemble treating, which she can see to be, which seem to be treating. Because remember that the government is not involved in electioneering and election campaigning, but whichever party wins according to the kind of system that we currently use, whichever party wins, that party will form the government. So you couldn't bring action against the government for treating. You would have to bring the action against the candidates or the party. And if she chooses to do that, certainly it's going to be something that makes it into the court after the election. Because even if it does go in before the election, based on historically what we've seen, not a thing going to happen before the election. It's going to have to come after, and once it gets into the court system, well, it's anybody's guess how long it's going to take to surface and to get some hearing and get some attention. And these are some of the serious weaknesses that we have in our electoral system. It is almost impossible to hold to account the people who come forward and breach our laws. You know, several attempts have been made. We've seen it in Dominica, we've seen it in Guyana, we've seen it in other countries where attempts are made to hold these people accountable through the courts, and it's just like it's a puppy show thing. It just never happens.
Yes, indeed. I love that word that you use. It seems as if it's a real puppy show thing. Bev, just continuing there with you, just before Paula chimes in. I heard of a situation, and I'm saying it's an allegation for now, whereby a well-known pollster in the region had some kind of engagement with Dr. Keith Mitchell, let me give him his handle. And the things that were said there or said to Dr. Keith Mitchell, can you shed any light on that, Bev, about the outcome of the election?
I have heard these stories myself, and I have zero evidence of anything that happened. So it's not something I am going to tread into at all. I haven't spoken with any of the parties involved about it, but I've certainly heard the stories. And interestingly, the stories have not been refuted to say it didn't happen, but I don't have any evidence of it as such. All I have is stories upon stories upon stories.
Okay, so we'll leave that as a story for now.
Right.
Paula, yes, your take based on what you have been hearing so far.
Yes, Lofty. My take is that it seems like most of the Caribbean, not all, maybe most of the Caribbean leaders, they all follow the same trend, and they all have the same thinking and meditation. And I say that to say, some way, somehow, they find themselves involved in some corrupt act. Because most of the Caribbean countries, where these leaders find themselves involved or alleged to be involved in some corruption, they sell passports. And they cannot give account for all this money that they collected from the sale of passports for a number of years. And we are talking here directly to Dominica, where time and time again, what the citizens continue to do is to ask for accountability. And I'm saying in as much as, and even someone made a comment here and say, seeing that all the Caribbean leaders are all corrupted, they are all corrupt leaders, maybe we should have one government. I'm saying, well, all the Caribbean countries should come together and we should all do the same thing. And we as a people should start chanting down for these leaders for them to have to resign, or we force them to resign. Because what happened, we know the last election that we had some of the police officers from other countries. They came to Dominica and we know how they terrorized the citizens of Salt Creek, particularly. And we are saying if these Caribbean leaders would stop these things that they are doing and do the honorable thing, maybe we would see a different twist. Because what happens? Because the leaders, all of them head are in the same basket. So when Dominica called on St. Kitts or Dominica called on St. Vincent, because these leaders there, they are all corrupt, what is going to happen? St. Vincent is going to assist Dominica. And when St. Vincent called on Dominica, Dominica is going to assist St. Vincent. So it's time we as a people, we all have to stand together. Because if we do not stand, time and time again, what leaders will continue to do is continue to steal elections and impose themselves on people, and people who do not want them to govern them because they are not being, they are not governing the people. They are doing what they are doing for themselves. So it's like, it's a problem that we have in the Caribbean countries, but we as a people, we are the ones that have to stop this. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically, Paul, you're saying the onus, the real onus is on we the people to fix our problem in the region.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah. Guys, I'm seeing already it's 8 minutes to the hour, 5 o'clock. And so let me move across the table now back to Dwyer to ask him for anything else he wants to put on the table. And also if you can include your closing comments in that, Dwyer. The time basically ran by so quickly.
Well, yeah, there are lots of very questionable activities that have been taking place here, particularly on behalf of the incumbents, not particularly, solely as far as I'm aware, because they have the machinery of the state at their disposal, and it is being used quite ruthlessly and callously, just in pursuit of re-election. There is a quiet, but in my opinion, obvious and visible anger among people who are not prepared to put up with any more of this, but there is a lot of fear. And so they want to express themselves behind the curtain at the polling booth. But there is no doubt about it that this country, the leadership of this country, leadership in this country has been mongrelized beyond precedent. And it would be a terrible thing if after the election, those who are there still are there. This country, I tell you, I've told you about the problems with the European Union and us not adapting to the digital divide and the artificial intelligence, the world and so forth. No, it's not going to be easy here if we don't get a change of government. And having said that, again, I want to thank you, Lofty, for the work that you're doing to help to share information and edification among the people of the region, and to encourage you to continue. Also, to thank you for allowing me to be here so I could engage with my good friend and boss on Make We Chat, Beverly, and of course, to share with Paula as well, who I got to know through you on your program. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dwyer. Well, Beverly, Dwyer gave you a very big hat there to carry this afternoon.
Yes.
As boss
Yes,
woman.
It looked like Dwyer want me to stay in one room. The head swell so big I can't go through the door. But thank you very much, Dwyer. And I tell you, I am also very, very happy to have met Dwyer and to have formed a liaison with him as one of the persons in the region who cares about good governance, who care about the people in this region, and who definitely would like to see a change in how we approach governance of our states. Paula said something very interesting, that we should have one government, and probably we should, because we cannot afford the cost of governing our states. 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 people cannot carry cabinets with 14 and 15 people and ministers of state and all of the trappings that go with that. Financially, we can't afford it. So we possibly should look at having a single unit, especially across the Eastern Caribbean, where the total population is just about 500,000 people. We should look at having a single unit to govern our islands, to govern these states, and it would work better for us financially. So, Lofty, we're just keeping an eye on what's going to happen in Grenada. Come over the next few days, by the end of the week, certainly, we will know who will form the new administration in Grenada, and an interesting election for many reasons. So we definitely looking to see what the outcome will be. And most of all, we want any party that forms the government after the 23rd to really take the issues of Grenada to heart and start working on turning around the fortunes of the country. Despite our small sizes and troubled economies, we can do much better if we manage our countries better. And that is what I want to see from Grenada after the 23rd, better management, so that the people can benefit more from the resources of the country and we can begin to move up and move forward.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you very much for your closing comments as it were. But just before we depart this afternoon, I've been getting a lot of queries, a lot of inquiries, as it were, about Bev, Dwyer is there as well, about the Make We Chat program. Persons are, sometimes there's a saying that you never miss the water till the well or dry.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been getting a number of persons in Dominica really inquiring, Lofty, can you give me an idea when is Make We Chat coming back? So Bev, can you, shed some light on that as it were?
We are working on some things in the background to bring back Make We Chat, but we do not want to promise any date and then we're not able to live up to that promise. But I can tell our faithful fans and those who have been following that we do have a production element that we have to have buttoned up real tight before we set a date to come back. So we're working on it because we do miss the program as well. There's so much happening across the region that we would love to address. So we miss the program as well, but it's just that we have to work on these elements and get them straightened out before we hit back the airwaves. So I don't want to make any empty promises, and I'm not going to. We're working on it, and as soon as we're able to, we don't expect it to take a year. We're looking at a few weeks, maybe a couple of months to get things really ironed out and then build it back.
Dwyer, I know you yourself, you missed that program as well, where that program basically exactly things like what we're doing now, but on a smaller scale. Make We Chat had it much larger in terms of, connecting the Caribbean as it were for information.
Yes, very important platform for the regional debate. And I believe potentially a very important part of the glue that can bring us together as a region, the same Make We Chat program. And again, Beverly and our brothers who are departed have to take the credit for leading us. And
Sure.
This is why I'm so honored to be part of it with Beverly as our boss. You're part of it to Lofty, and we all know Beverly is the boss. And that's the end of it.
True.
No election necessary.
And they say the boss is always right.
Well, Beverly is, she manages us very, very, very
Properly, yes.
very, very well, very well. And we're really proud of her. She's a warrior, you know. She's not as we say here, she's not pia pia. She's a warrior. That's the real thing.
The thing about the thing about it, though, Beverly, when you look at Beverly, Beverly's sort of, you know, unassuming kind of, but as you said, she's no pia pia. She knows her stuff.
No.
And when she's hitting, she hits really, really hard.
And that young lady that I have now in St. Vincent, Adriana,
yes,
and some others on it, Janet from Jamaica, some serious people, you know, and we really need that platform or one like it. And so I do hope that for the sake of the region, regardless of who are the persons on it, for the sake of the region, that or something like it can be brought back sooner rather than later. People do listen, and institutions do listen to it.
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Brother Dwyer.
Yes, man.
Sister
All the best.
Beverly, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I know it's always a task sometimes to come on a Sunday at that, but I know you normally make time to share information, as it were. So on behalf of the number of persons that are there on the live, 150 something plus, Dwyer, there's a brother from Portsmouth. Once you're on, he's always tuned, and he always appreciates your intervention, by the name of Brother Pat Corbett. He always say, this guy, you know, he always listens to you very intently, and he loves your deliveries.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it too, and thank you guys for your love and your support, and looking forward to being back with the team very, very soon.
Thank you very much, Beverly. Thank you, Mr.
True.
Dwight.
Thank you. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you, and you too, Lofty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. All right, Dominicans, that is it in terms of our first segment here. We basically had an update, gave you guys an update as to how it is shaping up in Grenada, that's the Spice Isle of the Caribbean, and as well in St. Kitts and Nevis. As you heard Brother Dwyer said, the parliament was basically dissolved sometimes back, but up till now, the persons from St. Kitts and Nevis, they don't have an idea when exactly, what day are they going to the polls just yet. Well, in the case of Grenada, Thursday coming, that is the 23rd, they will be going to the polls in Grenada. And as you heard Beverly said quite eloquently, by Friday or into the weekend, you guys will get an update on that platform, the Civic Vibes platform, as to just who won the hearts and mind of the men who will lead the country for another 4 to 5 years in Grenada. So that is it for the first segment. I want to thank each and every one of you for staying on with us. Those of you ask your questions, those of you made your comments, thank you very much. We are now going and dive, as it were, into the next segment of the program. And the next segment of the program, we have in our company already here a very formidable young lady, I must call her, in the name of Miss Gloria Septra Augustus, a magistrate in Dominica. And we're going to look into the topic this afternoon, all important topic, I must say. Sometimes some persons in Dominica are on the look, as it were, some situations in Dominica, but especially where the young people in Dominica are concerned. We have had a number of situations even unfolding now where young persons are basically under the gun. And who better than Miss Augustus to come and deliver to you, to us this afternoon, as it pertains to child justice or children's justice in Dominica. Let me say a special good afternoon to Miss Augustus. Are you there? Are you listening? Can you hear me? Miss Augustus, are you there? Okay, folks, I think something technically may have went wrong if Sister Augustus set up. So let us just try to make sure that at least she rectifies that and comes back in. And we'll be having that discussion with her in just a bit. Good afternoon again, Mr. Augustus. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. As soon as we started, internet started to give problems. So I was like, oh my God.
And you know what you said there this afternoon, Sister Augustus? Exactly that happened to me this afternoon. When I started, the internet just started to give issues. And so I wonder what's happening.
Wow, wow, wow. I was like,
Yeah, and
what?
but you are there nonetheless. And so thank you very much for coming on. Paula is the host of the program. Paula, you want to say a special good afternoon to our guests here?
Oh, yes, I definitely want to. Good afternoon to Miss Gloria Augustus. I learned her other name this afternoon, lovely. Septra, you say?
Yes.
That's a nice name and it's not common. Well, special good afternoon to you, Mr. Augustus. Yeah, can she hear me?
Yes, that's my name.
Okay, yes. So I'm saying special good afternoon to you. And we are looking forward to have a very interesting discussion here this afternoon. So welcome to Civic Vibes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Paula, for you greeting Miss Augustus. And I want to thank as well the number of persons who are already on the live. That is like 160 somebody persons there. They too would want to say a special good afternoon to Miss Augustus. But let us just get right into it. I know sometimes you may be seeing that young lady or hearing about her. The last I heard her, it's on a radio station in Dominica, Cairo FM, dealing basically with what we're about to discuss in just a while. And sometimes you really hear persons, you maybe see them, but you don't have an idea exactly who these persons are in terms of their background, their upbringing. And so this afternoon I have that all important avenue this afternoon to all important opportunity that is this afternoon to bring a bio across to you, your listening audience, as to just who Miss Gloria Septra Augustus is before we get into the thick and thin of things. So take careful attention, people, because there are certain things I read that I did not know at all. So you too might be amazed. It says here, Miss Gloria Septra Augustus has been a magistrate from October 2004, dealing mainly with juvenile and family court matters in Dominica. Prior to becoming an attorney at law in 2001, Ms. Augustus worked as a secondary school teacher and a senior fisheries officer of the Fisheries Development Division. Ms. Augustus was seconded to the OECS, working as part of the OECS and USAID Juvenile Justice Reform Project Phase 11 team in St. Lucia as technical specialist from 2017 to January 2020. She returned to Dominica and continues to operate as a magistrate. Ms. Augustus is a graduate of the University of the West Indies in 1987 with a Bachelor of Science degree and also a holder of a master's degree from University of North Wales, Bangor in fisheries biology and management. She also holds a degree from the University of London in laws, a legal education certificate from the Hugh Warden Law School in Trinidad and Tobago, and a diploma in legislative drafting from the University of Guyana. She's also a trained mediator and has received a certificate in introduction to counseling. She has recently completed training in mental health and risk factors assessment for juveniles. It continues, Ms. Augustus's exposure is quite extensive as she has always been involved in community development activities, which promote the elimination of all forms of discrimination and equal justice for persons and groups from various sectors of the society. Ms. Augustus has been involved in activities related to and worked as an advocate for women, children, family, and social reform and human rights issues related to age HIV. Her focus is on various assessments with a view to reform the laws and policies that address the needs of the socially disadvantaged. She is very involved in youth activities. She is one of the founders of FOTA, that is FOTA, which means From Offending to Achieving, an alternative program for juveniles and at-risk youth in Dominica. Ms. Augustus has been involved in film and drama as producer, director, writer, and actress. Her involvement in drama began from school days. She has taken on several roles in the People's Action Theater, that is PAT, many productions. When she became the president of La Cour des Arts de la Dominique, Inc., that is a registered nonprofit pro-arts, pro-culture group, she was then able to use that skill to increase her advocacy efforts. The group started a drama group, a project, joint secondary schools drama group, and she has used this group to educate on HIV issues, edutainment, yes, you would be correct, edutainment style, particularly targeting youth. She is particularly interested in educating persons about the stigma and discrimination with HIV and how they can be part of the process to eliminate the same. The information once given to persons can help behavior change, which is essential for reducing the incidence of HIV and AIDS, and encourage testing and treatment. She received a regional award for her work in HIV advocacy. Ms. Augustus taught for about 3 years at Wesley High School prior to the formation of the joint secondary school drama group. She also assisted in the St. Martin Secondary School and the Goodwill School in the area of drama. Ms. Augustus also writes short stories, poems, and plays, some of which she has been awarded prizes. Ms. Augustus has always been involved in activities impacting youth, and she has received awards for the same. Her only full-length play, It Only Takes One, was later adapted to a movie. She has also written and produced 2 teaching videos on sexual abuse against minors, short play for television highlighting climate change issues and other on consequences of involvement in drugs by minors in a dysfunctional family. She also wrote the script for the television series Make the Move on domestic violence. She has documented several of her literary work. Ms. Augustus has attended several training courses for the audio-visual sector. It continues by saying, Ms. Augustus has been hailed as a champion of the Juvenile Reform Project in Dominica by the U.S. Ambassador to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Her Excellency Linda Tagliatella, and others. She has been very visible in the coordination and facilitation in several activities under the project. She recently held outreach activities, View from the Person Van and David Story, which sought to achieve the objective of creating linkages with civil society in understanding issues crucial to the reform process impacted by a wide cross-section of the population and receive good reviews. She has facilitated some regional activities under the Juvenile Justice Reform Project. Again, using a creative talent, Ms. Augustus wrote a radio serial, Is It Me? Which forms, part of the parent programming, Clues of What to Do. This 10-part program has been aired on DBS Radio, rebroadcasted as well on Q95 FM, and was an initiative of the Juvenile Justice Reform Project. Miss Augustus also adapted one of her short stories to a screenplay, Pretending Reality, which highlights the pain of a young boy seeking to confirm the identity of his father. The movie was yet another initiative of the Juvenile Justice Reform Project. Finally, Ms. Augustus continues to interact and impact youth both in and out of the judicial system. She always shares her knowledge with the public through her volunteer services in matters related to children, women, and older persons. And I love that last line, and that is where I want Ms. Augustus to come in when she says she always shares her knowledge with the wider public, and that is why she's here this afternoon. Ms. Augustus, again, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, good afternoon.
Yes, indeed. I read about you, and much more persons out there, at least they know a little much more about you. But first question off the bat to you, Ms. Augustus. Why
can I just correct something you said?
Yes, sure, no problem.
It's Juvenile Justice Reform Project phase phase 2, and also it's view from the prison van. One of the
phase 2. I said phase 11. Sorry, I said phase.
Phase 2.
Oh, it's phase 2.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Sorry about that.
Phase
My
2.
bad.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
It is
No
written
problem.
there like 11.
Yeah.
But yes, why are you so passionate about children and the justice that children get?
I don't think it's just about the justice that children get. I think it's generally just about children. I see a lot of times that there are young persons. In fact, everybody has potential, and sometimes this potential gets wasted or doesn't come to the fore because of certain situations. And I always feel that, sometimes some people, all they need is a helping hand, somebody to assist. And justice comes under this whole thing. So justice is part of it, but generally I see young people as having potential, and that if they have the right people to help them, the right role models, the right setting, and certain things, then they can be more productive. They can be young people that we really want to smile when they do certain things, rather than those that we want to cringe when we hear certain things that they do.
Yeah.
I hope my internet is working.
Yes, it is. I'm hearing you loud and
Okay.
clear. I'm hearing you loud and clear. Thanks.
All right.
Because reading through that bio, I noticed that you are all into young people.
In fact, one of my all of my short stories are about young people, and somebody, when they read it, they said they think I need to be psychoanalyzed, because every short story is something about youth, something. But I guess it is the fact that there's certain things I think that need to get out there, certain messages, certain things that people need to be aware of, and maybe because I have this love for people in general. And remember, young people are vulnerable. So I just felt that I needed to be a voice, because when I eventually will publish my stories, it will be that they told me to tell you. That's the name I hope to give it. It's a reality series. They told me to tell you. It's more about messages out there, things going out there. Because sometimes you have to bring certain things or let other people think or feel if you want to get certain results.
Yeah, and you being in the position that you engage on a daily basis, on a weekly basis as well, with a lot of young persons. You hear some of the issues that they go through, you hear some of the pain, you hear some of the plight, and so you are well positioned to help. In particular, I know you said you love persons in general, but the young persons, as to helping them out for some of their situations.
And remember, I also mentioned that people are within the justice system and out of the justice system. So I have seen all sides.
True. The last that I heard of you in terms of making a plea out there, it's that you were saying that out in our region, in the region that we live in, as it pertains to some laws that would help young people, in particular, Dominica, basically, we have those laws at our disposal as well, but we have not done enough. We have not dug deep enough to sort of go through those laws and let those laws mean something for these young people in particular. I would want to,
Okay,
start
can I
from
just,
there.
all right. Yes, I was speaking about the OECS had engaged on a reform project for laws that impact the family. And some of these laws impact directly children. For instance, the Child Justice Bill and the Children Care and Protection Bill, also the Citizens of Children. And just to let people know that in the draft form, it's a bill. When they have done all the updates, so when they have done all when they have gone through it and decided what are we finally going to accept, or what are we finally going to put forward in Parliament, and they pass that through the House, then it becomes law and it becomes an act. So what has happened is that the OECS reform project, some of these laws were revised, were reviewed, because really our laws dealing with families are outdated, are archaic. Some of them are as early as in the 1970s. And if we think of 1970 and now, think about cell phone, think about TV, think about things. I mean, we have moved, a lot of other things impact people, and therefore our laws also need to really be revised and reviewed and reformed, the systems that reform to deal with the times that we are in. And also sometimes what you find is that ways that we probably were doing things before, we didn't know, but given the science, given how things have been going on, we realized, or even things that we've signed, or certain things that we become part of, we realize that we really need to do better or do differently. And one of the areas that in terms of the bills is the Child Justice Bill. And this is what I would like to talk about, because as we know, we're always talking about change. We're talking about legalizing, we're talking about reparation, climate change, resilience. All these things are dominating our conversations in the region. But one of the critical areas of focus is what we call juvenile justice reform. And it has been struggling to get the attention and further action in some other countries. Bill, and is now law. And Dominica is the only one in the OECS that has not passed the Child Justice Bill. Now, because of our time, I just want to give a sort of overview of the whole thing, because it's something that we can take 3 days, 4 days, 5 days really discussing. So I want to give an overview of what we are, why we're doing it, and what it is now and where we intend to go. Because so I will go through that. So under this whole, as I said, the OECS Family Law and Domestic Violence Reform Initiative, we had several consultations throughout the region to harmonize existing laws and reforming the justice system to deal with family-related matters. And most of that is in keeping with basic human rights and also the relevant international instruments that were ratified by the member states. So for instance, the Child Justice Bill is influenced a lot by things we have ratified in the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So out of that, we had outputs, and we have 6 family law bills. So why is the need for that bill? As we said,
Mr. Augustus, Ms. Augustus, not tripping you there. Can you just, like, your screen or your device, can you just bring it a little lower down, because I'm seeing like half of your face.
Okay, all right.
Right,
no problem.
voila. Thank you very much. Thank you. Continue.
Right.
No problem.
So why is there need for that? We want to take a more rights-based, individualized approach to dispensing justice for children in conflict with the law. And the main focus in this law is more on diverting them away from the criminal justice system and rehabilitation. Having been in this from since 2004, some matters that come to court really don't need to come to the court. okay? And also not all children who come to the court do quote unquote the worst things or very bad things. So, and everybody doesn't have this criminal, so-called criminal mind. Yes, we may hear of young people doing very bad things, and then because this is what sticks with us, we say, boy, them children. But what we have to recognize is that we cannot paint everybody with a broad brush. So even the whole legislation takes that into account. And for us to understand it and appreciate and help, we have to have a mindset along those lines. Because if we just think of all children or them children, we will not get there. So one of the areas that these laws considered was what is the minimum age for criminal responsibility? And that minimum age of criminal responsibility was put at 12, because in some countries, it spanned from 7 to And what is the age of criminal responsibility, you may ask? Capacity to infringe the law or to commit a crime. In other words, a child who has not yet reached the age of 12 cannot be charged with an offense or subject to any criminal law procedures or measures. Yes, we will not say, okay, don't do anything. Something will be done, but it will not be done, and it will be done under maybe some other law, and it will be done from the point of view of care. And for a child 8, 9, 10 years who do something that's very bad that everybody's bawling about, there has to be other things that are wrong, right? So it will be done, it will be dealt with from that point of view. But criminal age of responsibility throughout the region, they have decided, let us make it 12. So this is the age of criminal responsibility. And also there's emphasis now on child. With juvenile, they're saying is kind of derogatory and so on. So they're trying to move away from using that word, and we talk about child justice. That's another thing. With the new law, a lot of the terms that we're accustomed of using have changed. And a child is anybody under the age of 18, and that has been influenced by the rights of the child that we've signed, that defines a child as anybody under the age of 18. Now, always debatable and difficult to pinpoint whether 12 is an age at which a child can be considered to have a general understanding of the nature and content of the criminal proceedings and the repercussions. But we had to get an age decided for the region. So under the Child Justice Bill, anybody who has committed an offense, a child, from 12 to 18 would be dealt with under that law. And our law already had 12. There were some of our other brother and sister OECS countries that had lower, 7, 8, 9, and so on. But we already had 12. Now we have to speak about, we also have to look at why we have a specialized system for children who commit offenses. And you notice because even the terminology to commit clarity it's also the duty of the state to protect that they treated. I'm going to put you through the process in conflict with the law is that is arrested. Sorry about that.
Yeah, the internet is really giving me something to stress this afternoon.
Oh boy.
The last I heard you
Let
said,
me just repeat where I think I went down. I'll just
wow.
the general under because the process now is that if a child is found alleged to court, where this child has to play, where this or not guilty, and if a different way, if they are found guilty or they plead guilty, the way that we deal with them now is that we need to get a sort of probation report or pre-sentence report or social inquiry report on that young person before we can, you get to know more about the child at the end than at the beginning. So you get the report after you've done the case and so on, and you get to know about the child either in terms of the child family, the interview persons. It's done for division by the officers who are there, who are assigned to work with young people. And we get to know about something about their school, how community people see them and so on. They kind of give you an idea as to who this child is and how do we treat this child. Because in the law presently, it states that the magistrate should sit with two other persons. Because really, when you're looking at what young people have done, you don't just look at the offense. You look also at other situations. And we have not really been doing that. The closest that we've gotten to that is where every Wednesday in the Rosa district, a specialized, we call it juvenile court, the welfare officer, or an officer from the social welfare division will come to the court. And if there's something that we want, or they might help while you're going along with the matter in terms of giving information if you ask them, or they might be presenting reports. So as the closest we have to some other person being involved in the whole process, okay? Now, magistrates have very limited sentencing options presently. As I tell them, it's like fine, confine, you could ask to pay money, or you could send to somewhere, and the somewhere we have is prison, okay? Or you could warn, you could reprimand, you could discharge. And we also have community service, but even that has some challenges in that you need to have places where you could send them to. You need to send them to right places. You need to also look at, will they be supervised? What's the level of supervision and reporting? So there are some challenges with that, but the law also allows that. But under the reform legislation, what is being proposed under the Child Justice Bill, what is being proposed, as I said, it is more diversion focused. It is something that supports pre-trial diversion in an informal, mandatory way for a process called the initial inquiry. Do not confuse it with what we do now called the preliminary inquiry, where if somebody has committed a very bad crime, like it's alleged to have committed a very bad crime like murder, manslaughter, because body harm, and this really are matters that for the High Court, where we take the information in magistrate's court, and if the information is sufficient or a sufficient case is made, enough information to go up to the High Court, it is sent to the High Court. That's preliminary inquiry. That's different. This process there, the pre-trial diversion informal mandatory procedure, is called initial inquiry. So this is a new thing. We have never done that before. This is what this law is saying to do, because remember I told you there are some matters that really should not come to court. So this is a where you sort of do sifting in transit, find out at this stage, should that matter really go onto the formal court system where we go the whole 9 yards and use more resources and go through a longer process. So prior to the initial inquiry, any child alleged to have committed an offense must be assessed for individual and family and community history that would put them at the risk for reoffending. And when you say assessed, there are people who have been trained throughout the region, Dominica also, where they do an assessment. It's an interview process, like to find out about that young person, find out about their history in terms of family, in terms of community, and so on, and their risk for reoffending. And there are different levels of assessment. So this quick assessment would be done, and it would give an idea as to what's the risk for reoffending and what needs can be addressed, to reduce reoffending. Because really, we don't want them to come back every Monday morning. Okay? Sometimes I say, if you come this way, I want you to walk this way, but once, don't come back again. So the reform addresses screening also for mental health issues, because there's some young people who have mental health issues. And you might be saying, but they're not psychiatrists, or they can do that. It's a process that has been tested, and there's certain questions, it's a sort of interview question and scoring that kind of gives an idea as to, are there possible mental health issues with that young person? So the reports from that process would inform the magistrate. Now, in some of the OECS countries, the initial inquiry is conducted by what you call a committee, right? But in St. Lucia and Dominica, we have decided that it will be done by a magistrate. And the magistrate would sit with other persons. So technically, there's still a committee, but it will be run by a magistrate. And they would conduct that initial inquiry on how to divert the child if this is an option under consideration. Because not every matter will be diverted. So people don't think that now we're going to be soft on crime, or trying to get a slap on the hand. And no. There are some children who will go through the other door and will go through the trial process, and other things will happen at that point. But there are some who do not need to go through that. So initial inquiry is an informal process. It's mandatory. And at that initial inquiry, what has to happen is that that person has to acknowledge responsibility. Now, this is one I'm guilty, but because it's not the main going for the formal process, we don't use those words. The terms have changed. So it's like acknowledge responsibility. So any child for the informal, for the initial inquiry, before they can be considered for diversion, they have to acknowledge responsibility. They also have to want to be diverted. So if they don't acknowledge responsibility, they don't want to be diverted, it will go for the formal court trial process. Also, in any offense or crime, we have schedules. What you call minor crimes, not so minor crimes, and very bad crimes, that kind of thing. So we had them in schedules, schedule 1, 2, and 3. Schedule 3 would be where you find murder and rape and all these that make us really hold our head and say, Bonji, last days, something like that. So crimes like that, persons who are alleged to have committed those crimes might not be candidates for diversion, although they might go through the process, right? So there are some, so it's not everybody who will be diverted, but there are some who can be diverted. And that reform legislation has 3 levels of diversion. When you talk about diversion, that is where some of the guidance comes in. Because presently now, the law that we have, as I said, is either fine, confine, make them pay compensation, community service, reprimand, discharge, that type of thing. This other one have what we call levels of diversion, where they actually have outlined things. So you have where they might have a peer association deciding who or who you should not associate with. Also, it has attending certain programs. It has attending school. It has even a mere apology. There are different levels of diversion, and as you go up the level, the thing it gets to be much more. So, for instance, in a level 1, sometimes if you have to attend a program or so, it would be, let's say, for 6 months. If it's a level 2, it will be for 9 months. Level 3, 1 year. So, and so what we have is sometimes, even in terms of the levels, the length of time goes up. And another thing is that there are certain ages that you cannot give certain levels of diversion. But this will take much more time to discuss. But what I'm saying is that there's some guidance that the magistrate can use in terms of saying it's almost like a prescription. You come by the doctor finds out what's wrong with you, you have a prescription. So the levels of diversion is like a prescription to help to divert that young person. And when we say divert, we're diverting them away from the formal court system. If they are diverted and they carry out their diversion, whatever it is you give them successfully, that's it. My boy, my girl, you don't have a criminal record. Kudos to you that is it. If you are given a diversion and you do not do it successfully, you can be brought back to find out why it is that you did not do it successfully. And if it's something where you have to be assisted, we'll try to see how we can assist you. For instance, if you give somebody community service and the place closed down, or maybe it's too far, or they've moved and they cannot pay the transport, different things, because sometimes there might be reasons why they could not do it. If it's a willful, boy, I prefer to go and check my scene and I don't have time for that and so on, then you go through the formal court process. All right. So the initial inquiry is where that sifting is like in transit. You by the immigration officer, they're checking your passport to see whether everything in order for you to go through, or whether you have to go back out, right? Or whether you should have even been there in the first place. So this is that process. So that is different. That is different. That is not nowhere in the law that we have now. Another thing in the law, in the bill, it mentions police. So if people didn't know their role, it is mentioned there. You can look through that and you see police mentioned how many times. Probation officer mentioned how many times. Assigned officer mentioned how many times. It says who has a role, who should do what. DPP, it mentions institutions, it mentions names. So then persons have roles outlined for them. That's another good thing about that. You can't say you didn't know or you thought. It's there in the legislation. Also, the legislation just is the main thing, the principal thing. But all legislation, the teeth of it, the real thing is the regulations. And the OECS has also assisted in doing some regulations that the country would have to look through and decide, if they want to tweak something here and there. And then the relevant minister has powers to make the regulation, to endorse the regulations that have been made. So this is something that we have. It's almost like we have the thing, like when they have some of those things, you buy them and you just have to put them in the oven to bake. This is how the draft bill is. It's there. A lot of work has been done on it. We've had a lot of consultations throughout islands, even in Dominica, from since about 2001. The draft laws came up about 2006, 2007. Okay. So they have been around. So we have them. And we keep hearing, okay, it's going to come through, it's going to come through. But another thing is that even if we put it in place, what we have to be mindful of is that it's not just something on paper. It's good on paper, yes, but it speaks to certain people, workers for the task. If you don't have workers for the task, because this thing that cannot work with 2 probation officers and so on, it will never work. Because based on how it is, the children have to be monitored and supervised at different levels for different things. And if you don't have workers for the task, it's going to fall through. Also, it will be better if we have, like how we have task force in the police, we have a unit that to this police person. Because when you train, you see things different. I hear a noise, I just check it, I have no idea. But a mechanic who would hear the noise would probably decide, oh, okay, that is the point or that, so that because of the train form that a slap on the wrist, it is saying the court has a lot of things. Not everybody needs to come to the court, but everybody needs to, and some people, as I say, come there by default. And the partner coming outside from a coup where he sees his cousin fighting, he just joined that. He might not be a bad child, as mothers like to say, not a bad child, but when the police arrest, everybody in the fight get arrested. He comes to court, There are some people, something happened to them only once. I like to give the joke they can play is to put people in plastic bag and send by people. So if you're walking out of you, even as an adult, you're walking through the gardens and some little boy is playing with people in plastic bag and what gets you. When the thing bursts and you check, well, that's not water. You might just react one time. This is what the boy did. He reacted sent a stone. Stone didn't get boys because boys cough. Stone got a lady who was passing. Police must react. They must act. Boy will come to court with what is done. That is why they say we have to look at the total thing, how it happened. And that is why even from that we have, so that we can sift through and see whether we really need to go the whole 9 yards. So if they are found, if it's a matter that can be diverted, then it goes to the formal court process. It gives you information as to, who am I dealing with? Who's this child that's going through? It sort of sets it more in perspective as to maybe why this happened, or why that didn't happen, and also what it is that you can do to assist that young person to make a turnaround from that situation. Okay. Another thing is that even when the matter goes through the formal court process, if they are found guilty or they plead guilty, a pre-sentence report will still be required. And this will inform the sentence choice. And generally, what we would look for is, can we give an alternative sentence? When you say alternative to go into prison, or would they have to go to a residential facility? The thing about residential facility in Dominica is that we don't have one. All the other islands have one, right? Because sometimes you might need to take that child away from the environment and have them somewhere where you can assist them, where you can have some plan and work with them. Because remember, I said the emphasis is on rehabilitation. Or it may be that it's something that needs to go to a correctional facility, something higher than just a residential facility. And it can even involve going to a prison. So it even, and the law speaks about that. The law should only be detained as a measure of last resort for the shortest possible time. So it's really like, a sifting process to see who it is we should use the big stick on, quote unquote, who it is we should, try something else on. So it's like when you go to a doctor, you're questioned, and based on that, doctor know the diagnosis, what treatment, what tests you need. This is almost like that. The initial inquiry sets out, should we divert? If we should divert, what level of diversion we should use. Go through the formal process. What do we do at that point? Because we still want to give that young person a chance. Or is it one of the cases where we have to say, no, enough is enough. We need to send a message, or based on how it was done, this one has to get the full of the law, all right? Because the general goal is to hold the children accountable and also rehabilitate them in the process, and in some cases, reintegrate them back into their community. So it's no longer one size fits all. And whatever we do with them should be rights-based. It shouldn't be because it's this person's child, you do that, or that person's child. No. It should be rights-based, and where appropriate, and also it has to be appropriate, and also it has to be fair and proportionate. So this is really, this new law, the Child Justice Bill, speaks to that, and it really helps in terms of that. But just having the law alone will not do it, because the law speaks to certain structures. It speaks to place of safety. It speaks to residential facility. It speaks to certain persons who have to be in place. Now, do we have that, right? It speaks to assessment. Do we have people organized in such a way that the assessments will be consistent? And remember that there's the Rosso. It has to be something where we think, do we have that, or can we deal with, because we have courts in other areas in Dominica. So it has to be for everybody. So it's no longer one size fits all. when we bring in when we will bring in that that new law, because presently now we don't have that. Everything kind of goes through. What we try to do, what I try to do sometimes is we've also been training what is called restorative justice. Restorative justice it has to do with a process whereby you don't just look at what has been done, you look at also who has been affected. Sometimes when people do things, they affect the community, they affect somebody else. So there you try to bring in the victim or the community and have a meeting of minds and try to heal the process, because that young person has to go back into the community. So it can either take the form of a victim offender mediation, or what you call circles or conferencing, where you meet and discuss. And this also can go alongside with a formal trial, because despite a formal trial, you might still need to work on other things so that when that young person goes back in, you don't have a replay or people feel that they didn't get justice. So restorative justice is a sort of healing a process whereby the players involved come together and it's done in a structured way, not just come and talk. So people are trained to conduct those things. And what you're looking at is to see how can we fix things? How can that person make up for what they did? And in the whole process, we have what you call restorative justice questions and so on. And these questions really, what they do, they really cause you to think, not just yes, no. Like for instance, you might ask a child, when you did this, who you think was most affected? That's not yes, no. That is my auntie, whatever, and why, and so on. So you cause them to think, and there are questions for the victim also, because sometimes the victim can tell the person how they felt when it happened. That in itself can cause change. So this is one of the processes. In that new law, we also have about parents can be made to go to you can have what we call family conferencing, because sometimes the situation shows something bigger and you might need to involve the whole family or help the family so that it doesn't replay. True. So it really has much more. It also speaks to what we call it, what's the word? I lost the word. In terms of whether that person has a record or not, or you can that record can be wiped. Why is the word not coming? Wiped out. The law also speaks to that, because are we saying that if somebody did something during that age that it follows them throughout their lifetime? So it allows for particular crimes or offenses that you can apply to have that erased from your record and so on. And but the country has to decide it. So whenever they have decided what it will be in the law. So, and for some countries they're saying particular offenses, no. It will follow you. For others you may have to apply and it can be removed. Erased. Erased. So it speaks to all of those things. But as I said, it's a good thing on paper, but we need to have the people for the task. We need to have some of the structures that it refers to. And also, when we talk about diversion, we can also use a lot of programs that are happening in football and other things that are happening with NGOs. But the government itself has to have some kind of diversion program or some setup whereby that whole thing can be coordinated. Because if you say in divert, there has to be a process, and it's not something that you should take lightly and divert and people never go anywhere. And no. It has to be something where they're held accountable. So they're held accountable at the initial inquiry. They're held accountable if they continue to go on through the formal process also. I can probably just stop there. I've given a kind of overview of that child justice bill, and maybe you can ask some questions and I will see how best I can answer.
Yeah, true. And Mr. Augustus, I want to thank you, because I know the internet gave us some challenge this afternoon. I for
Yeah.
sure had a little difficulty in hearing or picking up some of what you're saying. So I want to apologize to some of our viewers and as well as listeners who are there with us, and they too may have been
Treated by
experiencing
that.
difficulty as well. So which means then you made us have to come back here and kind of polish up or give us a part two, as it were, because as you said, 1 hour is certainly not enough to kind of go through so that our listeners can get a better understanding of what that child justice bill is all about. What I
Because
hope,
also,
Yeah.
when it's going to be discussed in Parliament and so on, I want
yeah,
people to understand, because I have done police training for police through the OECS, and let's say it's 3-4 days training, and for day one and so on, a lot of people would say, boy, so fun crime and so on. But then by the 3rd, 4th day, after we go through the whole process,
okay,
it's like a crusade. We get some converts who recognize, okay, this is what it's saying, you know, because it's also a mind change. It's a paradigm shift. It's not just because we're looking at it that, oh, all children. No, we have to look at all the other things. Another thing too is that one of the things is why some young people behave the way they do has to do with brain development. There's also a science to that.
okay,
Your brain is not fully developed until you're 25. And the part that develops last is really the one where the one that will tell us, boy, do not do that, the one that takes up that kind of thinking. Some people will say, oh, so why all children are not like that? Because sometimes we lend ours to our children. That is why there's need for guidance. That's why there's need for role models. So
Okay.
although some of the children, although that's what it is, but some people have guidance and they follow. But some have no guidance. Some are like a car with good brakes and a driver who is not licensed to drive, and they just go, right?
Yeah.
And also at different stages of your life, you go through different things, risk taking and certain things. That is what it is at that point. If we look back as a young person, some people, if you look at things you did, you're like, what? I already did that. And some things you do no more,
True.
right? So let me just give an example. When I was doing the graduation in one of the islands, one of the police officers said, I want to give a testimony about something that happened to me, you know, when I went through the court system. And while he was speaking, a gazetted officer was smiling. So I'm like, what are you smiling for? He said, boy, what we said do there, that's soft, man. That's nothing compared to what I did. It's just that they fraud the case and I didn't go through. So you see there, because they fraud the case, he had a chance. And he took that chance, and look, now he's a big gazetted officer, right? So sometimes another thing we have to look at is chances. There are some people who take the chance. There are some young people who tell me when they see me, hey, you said I didn't come back. Yeah, I didn't come back. I say, yes, keep it that way, right?
Yes.
Some of them walk that way, but once. As I said, some of them come there by default, right? So not every child who comes to this court is somebody to fear and somebody to think, oh, they will be like, no. There are some who will be in that category, but there are lots of them where we need to deal with it differently. And also lately, well, not lately, but what happened at some point was that schools had this no tolerance policy, and if anything, caught or call police. And some things could be dealt with differently. So sometimes I would even deal with it differently in the court. If all parents are there and everybody there, and I realize, but what is that doing in the court? Okay, can we discuss? Can we talk? Can we do something else? Right? And sometimes some young people need guidance, they need help. That's why we have programs, that's why we have mentors, that's why we have other things that they can do. Because through that, people, some of them do change, some of them learn. And another thing we have to look at is prevention. Don't wait till they come to catch them in Europe and say, you know, what can we do for you now? Even before that, and that is why extracurricular activities are important at schools. That's why, you know, we need to have some of those. And we also need to highlight their potential. So when children are doing good, highlight that. Because when you're doing good and everybody have you up and they're highlighting that, you think you have time to do other things. You're so happy with the attention you're getting, and you know, sometimes you're even making money from that. I remember when I was in PAT, we had gone out once, and the youngest actor, French people, all the French people love him because he was small. The boy had gifts and all kinds of things. You know, the boy was basking in that. right?
Yeah.
So usually when you are part of groups, you learn other things, you learn how to get along with people, you have other people that you can look up to, you see other things. And that is why I felt so passionate about drama. A lot of my young person in drama now are big, who have children, who are married and so on. And through that, we really did a lot of things together. And it's really fulfilling, it's really nice. And to see, the growth, because there you learn, even as part of PAT, I learned, and that's what makes you what you are. But if you just left there, or you do chill and sit down, and they will find work for you to do. But if there are other things that you can do, and you see opportunities, you get to travel, you get recognized, your work gets read. There's somebody you can even in that group go to if things are bad at home and talk to them and say, hey, miss, whatever it is. All this helps. Because when people have a bond with somebody, you find that if they're going to do something, they think of how they're going to affect that person.
Yeah.
So when somebody tell you, but if it wasn't for you have a good chance with them because they do not want to hurt other people. If somebody family don't care whatever it is, oh boy, these people are dangerous because they have no care in the world, nothing. So these bonds, these relationships might not necessarily be with their family, they be other people in the groups that they associate with. There are negative influences, yes, and positive, but I'm talking about positive things. And this is one of the things that we need to do more of. Have more of these activities, this prevention activity, we might not call them prevention activities, but in fact, that's what they are. Because when you are involved and engaged, you are so involved and engaged and enjoying and going that way that you might not have time for the other things that will take you through the conduct. So
Sure.
I'm saying this is what we need. And in Dominica also, we need to have some kind of facility. I'm not saying build a big thing to hold up all our trade. No, because we don't intend to send a whole trailer load there. But I'm saying that sometimes you might really need to have a child removed, or you might really need to have that young person somewhere where you can work with them and so on. And and it's not just a place to give them food. So whenever this is being done, it has to be somewhere where you think about it, the location, the layout, who you put to work there, and train to work there, because these things are not simple. People just think, oh, it's not that. Because if the people that you have working with them are not trained, they'll just see them like troublemakers, shoo, and then you have them being made worse than they are, right? So these are things that we have to really, and we have gone, a lot of us have gone through to other countries to see what has been done. We have people here who know about those things, who can advise. The question is the advice sought? That is the thing. And if we have to do it properly, and is it taken as well, right? So it will cost some money, but if we do not put in that money, then we'll probably pay it at the other end. So really, 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 and some people, they do not appreciate the whole thing until it comes home and it's their child. Sure. And then they want you to bend and break and give a miry form. But we have to look at it as people interact. Your child will interact with other children. So therefore, you need to think of all children, because you never know who will be your daughter-in-law, your son-in-law, whatever it is. Or it could be your cousin. So it's really about, what can we do? We've been talking. We've been discussing. What can we do to put the policies in place? What can we do to get to get some people trained, enough people? And how can we start? We will have some teething problems, yes, but we can learn from our neighbors who've started before us and see how best we can go through. But everything would be better for our young people, because in the end, they are our children, right? We'll profit always from whatever they do. So let us, let them put a smile on their face. Let's see how we can treat them better. This law has been there long. We really need to update, upgrade, and even in terms of care and protection, because when I said child justice, the law we have presently, the Children and Young Persons Act, deals both with the protection aspect and with the child justice aspect. And in the new thing, they say no. These two areas are areas that really need to be separate, because the two of them, we need to look, although children might be in both streams, we really need to look at this one and another one. So we have the Child Care and Adoption Act, We have that. And we have the Child Justice Act. We also have the Status of Children Act. And this one, I really hope that we would put it in place, because this one gives fathers more quote unquote rights. Because presently, if somebody is unmarried, custody stands in the mother. And the person who has custody is the one who makes the most important decisions for the child. It allows fathers to have legally have much more how should I say it? Much more where are my words going? Much more to be more in the lives of their children. Also attached to that is what we call the DNA parentage rules. It also speaks to doing DNA. For instance, in Antigua, I sat in court with a colleague, and in Antigua, through the system, they do the DNA, and it's even cheaper. At that time, it was $400, right? Because a lot of people, they treat the children different if they're sure that the child is theirs. Some of them, they're not sure the child is theirs. When they feel good, it's their child. When they feel bad, you hear other things, and that's not good for the children. And the earlier you do it, the better. So this has that. This has that. And another thing about the status of children is that some people might not like to hear that. A child is 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 your child. There's nothing about outside child, inside child. All children have the same rights to you, to your wealth, to everything. So there are some people who don't like to hear that, because they check, well, my child should have more because I am married and so on. No. This one there gives equal rights to the father, to the parent, to the child. Inside child, outside child. It must come outside to make the child anyhow, right?
On the side child, all children.
Right. Okay. So this one, I quite like it. And I'm hoping that we can put it in place, because it will help a lot. Because a lot of fathers are going through quote unquote problems in really accessing their children, right?
Yeah.
So and this one it sort of lays it out and helps the whole process. So this is another of the laws that we're hoping that will come through very soon. Some of the islands have put that in place.
True. Yeah. Mr. Augustus, I realize our time has basically come and gone, but it would be remiss of me not to give my co-host Paul a chance, just to maybe ask one or two questions, maybe take one or two from our viewers and listeners as well. I myself have, something I want to ask you as well.
No
so
problem.
Paula, I hear you, but thank you very much. You have laid much on our plate this afternoon in terms of that child justice bill that is still yet to be implemented in Dominica. I took note of that. Paula.
Yes, Lord, thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Miss Augustus. I have a few questions there. I'm not sure Miss Augustus, she can answer them if she wish, but I will ask them now. Miss Augustus, you have said a few times that not every matter needs to come before the court. In that case, would you recommend that a rehab center should be here in Dominica, or there should be a mediator? Because you said this time and time
you said a rehab center. What are you referring to as a rehab center?
Okay, for example, the persons who come before the court and they have committed offenses.
Remember,
maybe
we're
not
talking
offenses,
about child. Are you talking about children? Because we could be.
Yes,
Are you talking
yes.
general, or are you talking about children? Because
I'm talking about children. I'm talking
Okay.
about children.
All right.
So someone comes before the court and they have committed an offense, but it's not something that warrants like the matter being heard at the court. Maybe this person in that case would maybe need some counseling, being at a rehab, or maybe needs a mediator. So what's your take on that?
Okay. In terms of counseling, yes, there are some times when we require counseling. And what I try to do, because we do not have, like for instance, most family matters really should be done in a family court. Family court is organized differently. Family court also has persons who work in the family court, like counselors and so on. We do not have that. Well, what I do sometimes is I try to use the counselor at the welfare division, and if I think I really need this, I would call and ask, can I send this person to you? And at one time when there was child fund around, I knew they had a counselor, or I'd find out where they have counselors, and I would try to find, ask that person, can I make an order for this person to come to you through the welfare division? So yes, we need that, because even under this new child justice bill, it speaks about counseling. Another thing is, I have been speaking to the Chief Justice every time I meet her. Can we do some matters in the magistrate's court by mediation? Because there are some matters, when they come, the other things that come up, you realize that you need some level of mediation. So that, yes, I would say that we should be able to do that. And the mediation for child justice is really what we have as the restorative justice process. People have been trained to do it, but we have not put it in formally to be done, although sometimes we try to do things like that. So I may decide to do it. I remember once I went to the welfare division. I asked parents and everybody to meet me at the welfare division, and we had a meeting there about a particular incident. I brought everybody together, and it wasn't in the court setting, and we went through that incident there. Okay, so sometimes, you know, you really try to do that, but you're a creature of statute. You're really supposed to follow the law to the T. But this law is not moving along with the times. And sometimes you're forced to probably bend, or in the interest of the child or so on, do other things, you know. But whenever I do such things, I have some other backing. I have a reason why. And sometimes you see that is how probably it can be dealt with in the best possible way. So that is why I really would like this new law to come in, because it gives more guidance in magistrate. It gives more leeway. It is much better than what we have now. What we have now is stifled, and anyhow we bend, we're going against the law, right? So we need, and another thing is that some of our young people have mental health issues, and I think we really need to have a discussion as to how we treat with that. And it might not just be for my ministry, but my ministry, health, education, and so on. And how do we treat with those issues? And that's not just a problem for Dominica, it's a problem for throughout. But sometimes if they have mental health issues, they will keep coming back. And it might be because of the mental health issue, or because of how we treat or do not treat with them. And we might need to treat them differently, or have a different prescription for them if they have a mental health issue. So to answer your question, yes, we need all that, but we can only do all that if we put the processes in place, the workers for the task, and the people understand and they're committed to do the work. Because if people don't understand, you know, you can sabotage the whole process. And there's some things we really need to put in place. So yes.
Yeah. Any other, Paula? Thank you.
My next question to you, Mr. Augustus. Some say that conflict resolution should be taught in school. What are your take on that?
I think so. And in fact, under the Juvenile Justice Project, and also even schools do it, they have what they call peer mediation, conflict, child court and conflict resolution. I think it should. In fact, we had a workshop sometime under the project, and I actually brought some of the children from the court to that workshop with me so that they could learn. I actually brought some of them with me so that they could learn. So yes, this is something that we should, because we should, because sometimes when you hear what comes or the reason why it came. I had a matter once. What sparked it out was a boy told a boy, "You haven't got no mother's love." And you know, I guess it hurt him, and then he reacted, and then you had knife in it and all kinds of things like that. But that's how it started, you know. So and sometimes young people in their youthfulness have some kind of games playing, sending things in the class and all kinds of things. So we really would benefit from that. But I must say that some schools have been doing that. Maybe it's not as consistent as we would like, but it has been happening here and there now and then. And in fact, there has been a program under the Juvenile Justice Reform Project, and I think maybe some schools have been doing it, where they have peer mediation, which would bring in some aspect of conflict resolution. Because a lot of these things are sort of like related: conflict resolution, peer mediation, and they are defined differently, but they have certain aspects that are common. Yes.
Yeah.
Another question to you, Mr. Gossos. Lofty, just one moment.
Yeah, no problem.
What's your take on the length of time that a matter takes at the court that has to deal with a child? Because sometimes the matter takes a very long time, and by that, the child sometimes even forgets certain things that happen. And in some instances, the child may be, well, the age of a child, and sometimes by the time the matter is heard, it's like the
Okay,
child
you don't have to. I know what you're talking about. You don't have to continue. Yes, some things do take long, but there are several reasons for that. A lot of reasons for that. Some has to do with sometimes service of the matter. Some has to do with the investigation of the matter and the reports being in. Some has to do with number of magistrates and courts. Some has to do with the lawyers asking for adjournment. Some has to do with somebody being sick or not there. And some has to do with, I would say, there not being some kind of, I want to choose the word, there not being.
Is it the will to get it done?
No, I wouldn't say the will to get it done. I think we probably need to sit, particularly if we're looking at maybe sexual offenses where the child is a minor, we need to sit and decide how we treat with that, because there is a faster way to do these matters that can be that we can do, and also we can also sit down and decide what is the protocol, how we treat with those matters. Another thing in terms of this child justice bill, that's one of the things it recognizes. It's saying that the matter should not take that long, so it has timelines. So in it, it mentions when the police apprehend the child, within what time the police should inform the probation officer, within what time the probation officer should do the assessment, within what time the matter should come to internal inquiry. It has timelines. And one of the reasons why it has timelines is so that these matters would not drag. Actually has timelines in the law. So if timelines are not met, case go down, right? So there are several reasons why. I personally don't like things to drag. I don't like things to go on and on and on. I understand that. I have seen that happen. I'm not happy that's happening, but I think we need to make a more concerted effort to decide and to come together and say, this is how we treat with particularly sexual offenses, matters dealing with children that drag or other matters. A lot of it has to do with all the different things, and sometimes, certain excuses I don't accept. But it is a problem, and it's a problem that we need to address. But another thing is that a lot of people just accept those things. They say nothing. People need to speak about those things. People need to ask. People need to say something, voice their concern, because sometimes if they do, and if they do strong enough, loud enough, that might be where the change comes in. If Miss Augustus talk too much about it, then Miss Augustus, they will say, oh, she knows sabotage, she this, she that, and so on. So sometimes I do talk about it, but then how much can I say? So I'm saying that and for some people, the longer the case drag, they're happier, So the people who are already affected by it should speak about it and respectfully and go to the right people and see how we can get some of these things to change. Because really, particularly with young people, you have their parents having to come, and when parents come, they have to lose days at work, and some of the employers are not thrilled that the employee has to say they have to go to court, and in court you have to wait for your turn, and sometimes you wait for how many hours and then just to be told matter urgent and that kind of thing. So really, I think people need to speak about it, find out what can we do or how can it get better. Say something, about it, so that if more people speak about it, if it is indeed a problem for them, it is a problem, yes. But if they recognize it at one and they speak about it, ask questions, find out how can we do that, how can we fix that up, because it can be fixed.
And my last question to you, Mr. Augustus. Recently, we have had an increase in sexual abuse of children. What are your take on
Recently, you have statistics to me.
Well,
yeah, it has always been there.
Maybe it have always been there, but recently we've been hearing a lot about it. So
no, we've heard about it, but we keep forgetting.
Okay.
I think we've heard about it because every time it's just like how people say, oh, every Mother's Day, what mothers, and nothing but fathers, and when Father's Day come, and every year in the same thing, I'm like, come on, Moji. If every time you're saying the same thing, change it. So every time we're hearing about it has been, and then 9-day wonder, it done. So it has been high, too high.
So what are your take on the laws being changed and Stephen, the sentence, so it's like others be learned?
The laws are there. The laws are there. But as you just noted, it's the process. The process takes long. All right. Sometimes the process is the process. There are enough examples to say that it has been, as I said, there are lots of things, so we need to decide how can we go through that sooner, because once it takes that long, you find people make arrangement, people get too big and now feel, well, should I go through that again? All kinds of things happen, right? The longer we take for it to happen, all kinds of things happen. And then in terms of sentence, there are sentencing guidelines that I used. I am not at liberty. I should not comment on sentence given by other judicial officers. I cannot do that. I mean, at my home, I can talk to my friend or my, whatever, but I cannot publicly give any comment on that. But we have sentencing guidelines. And another thing too that we have to take into account is that when persons have been on remand for quite a while, you have to subtract something. There are different things that you have to take into account. There's a whole listing of things that you have to take into account. So I understand sometimes I can see why people are saying certain things, but sometimes some people don't understand. Sometimes it may be what they're saying is right, But what I'm saying is that if we are concerned, if we want change, if we want the thing to happen better, I should say better, but in a much quicker, reasonable time, we need to really let the authorities know, hey, can we do better? Can we do better at that? We need to let our voices be heard. Not every time once a year have a match or once a year talk and then, leave it there. It has to be something where we really, or people should really speak until there are results. And not just speak out of what you hear people say, but do your research, find out. And even people who are part of the process, who are involved, who have been affected, can come out and speak. We really have to look at that, in a much wider way. So yes, I agree, it is taking too long. And if I had my way, it would not be so long. If I had everything that I needed, if I were able to. But it's not me, it's a system. And sometimes the system fails. And we really need to address that, really need to be, and it has nothing to do with party. It has to do, if it were me or my child or whatever it is, or my neighbor, or if I were in that position, what would I want, right? So we really need to look at it from that point of view, because you never tell when he comes home. And some people only are sensitive and so on, or want certain things to happen when he comes home under their bed or to a member of the family or whatever it is. But we need to think of it in a much wider way. And, you know, because it can be fixed. It can be. It's not something that cannot, but there are so many things, you know, against. And we really need to sit down and well, when I say we, the main players, the ministry, the judiciary, and whatever, and see how best it is we can deal with that. But sometimes nothing happens because people say nothing. So life goes on, you know. But if people really come out, because sometimes I speak publicly, sometimes I speak in the court, sometimes I express my displeasure, but sometimes I get tired. I get tired of you know. But really, I understand, because you sometimes, even you as the officer, you want the matter to finish because you don't want to come there every time. And even sometimes you feel bad even telling people, okay, it has to be adjourned. But then you have to do it. Somebody has to do it. You know?
True, true. All right, Miss Augustus, I know our time has basically come and gone, but it would be remiss of me if I don't ask you at least the final questions here. And two questions I want to ask you. Well, one question, but it's in two parts rather. What are some of the, maybe one or two of the most striking impediments, that is, to that child justice bill becoming a reality in Dominica? And as we're along those lines, what do you think would be sort of the catalyst there to make it happen, to make it come live in Dominica, to make it come law in Dominica as it?
In terms of impediment, we have been on this road for so long that if you ask me, left to me, there should be no impediment. Because you know how many times we've had consultation talk, I've spoken to how many batches of recruits, and, you know, I've had things in the public, you know, to me, one of the things as much as I want it to be passed, I would like that the other things that go with it, almost like you're going to make something and you need the ingredients. The recipe is nice on the paper, but you need the ingredients. I would like that the certain policies and certain things that we have to put in place are there. Because if we pass it and we do not have them in place, headache, because you have to go by what the law says. So really, 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 I think people need to ask for it. I think people need to want it. I've had so many promises, I heard so many promises that it's going to be passed, it will be.
But
I really
do you know, Mr. Augustus, a lot of persons out there don't know that bill exists?
Well, one of the things is we had, another thing is people, I think nowadays people have a new thing saying, me, boy, I don't want to hear news, or I don't want to hear this, or I don't want to hear that. A lot of people prefer not to know. I don't know if that's a coping mechanism or something. So a lot of people do not know because they do not want to know. We've had several meetings where the turnout wasn't that good. We have it on radio, but every time I go on radio, I hear the same people call in. So I am not sure if some people are silent, if they've really not listened to radio, if they're really not what's happening, or if they prefer to deal with it that way. And I am also not sure if let me see, what was the other thing I was going to say? Because we have tried, we have done things. Even when we had this panel discussion on violence and so on, a lot of people came and we took the time to talk about certain things happening and so on. But then after that, what do the people do? Do we continue the conversation? Right? So yes, I would say some people don't know, but then maybe the attentions are on the wrong things. Nowadays, everything is WhatsApp, TikTok, this, that, things, you know, quotes and quotes and quotes and quotes. And it's almost like, you know,
put it on TikTok, put it on WhatsApp to remind them all there.
you know, quotes and quotes and things, you know, and sometimes I think to some people, they prefer not to deal with certain things. But I would say that we have tried,
Yeah.
Some of the people that we've tried to meet, we have not met them. Well, at least when I was in the OECS and I was sent down to have certain meetings, some of them never took place and so on. But I think we need to, the advocacy continues. In fact, we had for some police officers, along with Mr. Anthony a couple of weeks ago, we had 3 sets of that. We also, Mr. Anthony has been on the radio, Kyrie, Q, I'm not sure, he has been Q, yeah, and also DBS. In fact, I heard him, I started hearing him on DBS for the child care and protection. So the thing is, yes, we have been using the various mediums to do that. I don't know what else we need to do. Maybe persons who don't need to tell other people or have it as part of a conversation, you know, because now that this.
Have you guys thought of, sort of an innovative idea in terms of going out in the communities literally to?
No, Jafes. Remember I told you, now we're on that train.
Okay.
That is why I had panel discussion. That's why I do movie. That's why we had play. That is why I try all kinds of different ways to bring out different messages. But the thing is that if you do it and we stop, then they say you lose it.
Yeah.
What we have to do is keep the momentum, that type of thing. But then, I mean, who is going to keep it?
Because I'd want to think a bill that is so important for especially where young people.
No, it has been. Well, I have. Let me just talk for myself. I have been involved in a lot throughout. Mr. Anthony, 2 persons from the welfare division, we have gone out there. And we've tried all kinds of ways. In fact, in St. Lucia, when I spoke to the teachers, I had a meeting with principals of schools. I did it in the form of a skit using my drama skills. So I didn't just come to talk to them about that. I got one of them and we acted something out. And in that, we'll sort of slowly bring in the different points to show how things have changed. And then we discuss. So I've tried all kinds of ways. We tried all kinds of ways. I even did it with one set of the police officers the last time there. Because we try to find ways, but then the good news, does it go further than the training? Does somebody go and tell somebody else? Do they discuss it? So it's, we've been on television. There are things that are recorded that are on GIS, because years ago we did some things on GIS. Maybe it needs to be played over again because it hasn't come into force yet. So the message is still the same, right? So I am speaking from what I know, we have gone out there. But as to how the message gets disseminated and goes further beyond those who come to the training or will hear it. But as I say, we still need to, because you have people leave, people come, and that kind of thing.
Well, at least that forum this afternoon that you're on is just, one other avenue. And so the number of persons who are there, let us hope that they share the information, they share what they learned this afternoon in terms of that child justice bill, and that, your work will be made lighter for you as the message continue to permeate.
Okay. I'm thinking more in terms of a fairer system for children. Not just about my work being made lighter, because I come, I go, there'll be other people. I'm thinking of the system, a fairer, more rights-based, individualized, appropriate system for young persons. That's what I hope that we can achieve. And like anything else, we will never get 100%. So we will still have to deal with some young persons in a particular way. But what I'm saying is that we'll be able to give chances to deal with some others that we have failed, and to give some chances to more people, and hopefully more of them will bend at that end and go in the right direction.
Really well said. Thank you very much, Mr. Augustus. I want to thank you for your time. We took an hour and a half of your Sunday afternoon.
That's no problem.
It's always a pleasure, engaging persons like you in public space, that is to give out the necessary information that you guys have at your fingertips. I learn myself from engagements like that, and I know the number of persons they are always, always learning And so we just want to thank you in a very profuse way for you coming out there this afternoon and echoing that all-important fairer system, as you said a while ago, where in particular young person is concerned. So thank you very much, and we wish you all the best. And please, let's leave that line of communication open so that you can continue to give us much more on that platform in terms of not just child reform bill or child or children aspect of fairness, but you're dealing with the arts. When I read that bio there this afternoon, there's much more that we can learn from. So we look forward to you being here with us some other time.
Oh, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm hoping that at least some people who probably didn't know about it got to know about it, and that hopefully we have people who understand the need for the system. So you're welcome. My pleasure. Part of my work, part of what I want to see for young people. So I was glad for the opportunity.
Thank you. I know Paul would want to say bye-bye as well to you.
I too want to say thank you very much to Mr. Augustus. It was indeed a very wonderful discussion here this afternoon. And I hope that she enjoyed the rest of the evening and have a blessed week. And hoping to talk again, hoping to get you back on the program.
Okay, happy Father's Day to all those on the chat and to Mr. Durant.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Mr. Durant, I just want to read something. Where did I have it? I just want to read something in keeping with Father's Day. Something I saw today I was looking at a documentary about Black fathers. Okay. And I saw something today, and I mean that was so profound. I had to copy it, and I think I just want to read it. I just want to read it for the public. It says, fathering is not something that perfect men do, but something that perfects the man. That was a quote by Frank Pittman. When I saw that, I'm like, yes.
Go over that again, please.
Fathering is not something that perfect men do, but something that perfects the man. It's a quote by Frank Pittman. And the title of the documentary is Presence Over Presence. PRESCNC, presence being there, the relationship and everything, over presence, gifts. And that was the title of it. And that is very important from my work in the court and so on. This is very important, having that bond, that relationship, that presence, not about giving things. This emotional attachment is important. So I'd just like to say, to all the fathers who have been blessed with the gift of fatherhood and carried out the obligations, enjoy your day. And to others, let your conscience be your guide.
Thank you very much for sharing that quote with us. I know all of the viewers and listeners, they are appreciative of that as well. Thank you.
No problem.
All right.
Good evening.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, gentle people out there, I know, yes, we took you guys half an hour, a little later, but you're still there with us, so thank you very much for your company. Before we get out of here, though, there is one press release in terms of a statement that I would want to read from NJAM, that is the National Joint Action Movement Group in Dominica, which I am part of, which I am the PRO of, by the way, so that follows under my portfolio in that organization. And that press statement, it is dated the 19th of June, that is today, Sunday, 2022. It says, the national joint, okay.
True, okay.
Glory. Mr. Augustus, can you just mute your mic, please? Okay, good. Thank you very much. It says the National Joint Action Movement, NJAM, is gravely shocked and in total disbelief of the death of Kian Alexander, as confirmed in a 100-second statement by Deputy Commissioner of Police Lincoln Corbett, almost 8 hours after the population was informed of the situation on social media. It says Kanisha Etienne is now on her own, wherever she may be, and the unfortunate death of her abductor has complicated the search for the child tenfold, because the only source of information on her whereabouts is now deceased and lies cold in a funeral home. The prayers of all Dominicans and those concerned about the well-being and safe return of little Kenisha Etienne must be intensified, and all able-bodied persons are encouraged to join in the search to rescue the child. It appears that she is within a 5-mile radius of the place of her abduction, and time is of the essence. As the citizens commit themselves towards the search and rescue of this child, the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force, the Minister of National Security, and the Prime Minister must come clean with detailed and factual information on the circumstances which led to the death of the abductor of the child, and to reveal a clear plan on the process for finding the child now that the abductor is dead. There is no doubt that a thorough investigation on the search operations to rescue Kenisha Etienne will be required by all attention at this time, must be focused on finding Kenisha alive. It says here, NJAM therefore appeals to all Dominicans to continue to pray for the safe return of Kenisha, and that while the search continues, the Heavenly Father will give her the strength, energy, and spiritual resilience to endure the challenges that she faces, and that God Almighty will reveal the location of this child. As a God-fearing people, we should hope for the best result, but prepare for the worst, because 12 days in captivity under the prevailing circumstances must be agonizing for any human being, albeit a 12-year-old child. Finally, it reads, that is the press release, Heavenly Father, we as a nation ask for the safe return of Kenisha Etienne in the name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior. That is the press release from the NGO in Dominica that is called NJAM, that is the National Joint Action Movement, on the latest developments re Kian Alexander and young Kenisha Etienne. Paula, as we're about to wind up in just a bit, any final thoughts from you?
Well, Lofty, it is indeed rather sad. You know, like you have said, after 12 days, this young child has not been found. And the only person that could have given all the information to the general public and to the police officers who have been in search for this child for the past 12 days, he is dead. So let's pray and hope that this young child will be found and she will be found okay. So to all Dominicans, continue to pray and let's hope for the best. I also want to say thank you very much to all the persons who have stayed with us here on the live this afternoon. To all the fathers, I hope that you all did enjoy the Father's Day. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and everybody do have a blessed week. Love to you as well. Thank you very much.
All right, Paula, thank you very much for your hard work as usual, each and every Sunday, making time of your schedule, Paula, to be there with the number of persons who always participate, who always engage. And so I want to thank you very much, Paula, for that. Is indeed a good deed that you're doing each and every Sunday. Let me just say in terms of announcement before we leave here, remember we announced last week that come the first Sunday in July, which is like what, 2 weeks away or 3 weeks away rather, then the program, this program Civic Vibes, that normally usually starts at 4 o'clock. We have taken a decision that is to start that program at 5 o'clock instead, 1 hour later. So it will be no longer at 4 to 6, but it will be from 5 to 7 p.m. So please take note, the first Sunday in July, we will be starting the Civic Vibes program at 5 p.m. Let me see before I leave here, the first segment we heard from Beverly St. Clair out of Grenada. We also heard from Mr. Dwyer Astafan out of St. Kitts and Nevis. They gave us an update as to how things are unfolding politically in their island. And so we want to thank them very much for coming and using the Civic Vibes platform to educate or to inform, as it were, the many, many persons who were there with us this afternoon. So to them, we say a very thank you for a job well done. Finally, but by no means least, we want to say thank you to Miss Gloria Septra Augustus, who made her presence felt here this afternoon by talking to us about a more fair way to deal with, in particular, our young persons in this justice system in Dominica. So from Paula, myself, and the team, we want to say a thank you, a big thank you that is, to Miss Augustus on her delivery here this afternoon. And what would be the program be, people, without the many of you that stayed the course here with us from the 4 o'clock hour? And so we want to thank you very, very much, all of you. I'll not be going through any names right about now, but you are there. I'm seeing you. Thank you very much. I know this afternoon was kind of packed in terms of information, but you know, there are days like that. You just have to sit back sometime, relax, and absorb, take in, internalize, as it were. And this afternoon was such afternoon. All right. And next week, if God spare, we are looking at going back to base, as it were, and we'll be dealing with some electoral reform matters in Dominica. We are trying to put a good panel, a good team for you guys who can go down deep, who can dig deep, who can extrapolate, as it were, some of the things that we need in Dominica to make our electoral system much freer and fairer. So you can look forward to that discussion and more come next week, Sunday, right here. Same time, same place. Paula, your final words.
My final words, Lofty. Well, you've been doing a wonderful job. Be that is on the Civic Vibes program every Sunday afternoon, going out there during the week when needs be. I too want to say thank you for a very great job that you're doing, and for the Dominican public who usually, you know, give their feedback and everything like this. I want to say thank you to them, because without them, Lofty, this program would not have been what it really is. So once again, thank you very much, and happy night. Bye, Lofty.
All right, Paula, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That is it, folks. So those of you, you have some more hours to go through this Sunday evening. So whatever you're about to do, I wish you all the best in your doings tonight. And we pray to God that you get up rejuvenated, as it were, tomorrow, so that you can face another day and yet another week. Thank you very much. We are out of here. Bye-bye. We love you. See you same time next week, Sunday, from 4 to 6.